So touching on, everything Paul's just said, and what your team does. If we have young people out there watching this and they feel they've got um social or financial economic disadvantages in their life, maybe they don't have much money, for the basics in life, or they don't have support at home, and they feel turning to crime is the only way that they can fix that. What advice and support, does the team offer to try and, help people in those positions?
So one of fortunate isn't the right word, but one of the positions we're in is that we see from age 10 and above. And I know it can be quite shocking to think of a 10-year-old child in police custody, but unfortunately it does happen rarely, but it does happen, and it's very traumatic for a child, and it's very traumatic for the practitioners involved with giving that person care when they're in custody. So we see from age 10 and above to age whatever age that may go up to in terms of people being arrested. So we see that the path them individuals are on. And I think when I remember it was a long time ago, but when I was younger, when you might, be doing things that are breaking the rules or breaking the boundaries a little bit, or potentially, breaking the law in terms of what the law sets out, you don't see yourself on that pathway. So you don't see that smoking a bit of cannabis or taking a bit of cocaine or stealing a few bits and bobs from a shop. You don't see that in 20 years time or 10 years time or 15 years time you might be on a pathway of what's known as criminality. But actually what we see is we see, and I prior to the role I'm in now, I was one of our youth practitioner leads. So I've seen children when they were children and young people when they were 15, when they were 13, when they were 16, when they were 17, and I now see them when they're 22, when they're 23, and when they're 24. And these are the young people that I say, they're amazing young people. They've got so many good skills, so many great attributes. And I really miss that. I don't, because I'm the team manager now, I don't work as closely with them young people, but they're brilliant young people. The difficulty they're in and the challenge they're in is because of them social economic factors that you talked about earlier. Is their mum is a single mum, and they've got 4 siblings, and mum hasn't got any money, and dad might be in prison, or dad might have left, or dad might have passed away, or vice versa. It might be a single dad, where mum isn't around, or there's a lack of family support. And they haven't got food on the table, or they've got limited food on the table, and they see how stressed their mum is because bailiffs are turning up to the door. And I know this is a very extreme example in terms of what people experience, but it does happen. So that young person thinks, oh well, Tom down the road has said if I just sell a bit of weed for him, then he'll give me some money, and then my mum will be less stressed, and the kids will have new trainers for school because they're getting bullied in little school, and it'll be okay. And that's just one little step. And over a period of time, it's just little tiny steps. But eventually what happens is at age 22, you go into prison for 5 years for possession with intent to supply Class A drugs. And it's really difficult for young people to see that path. But I also appreciate not only is it difficult for them to see that path and what might end up happening, it's difficult to say, well, what else can I do? How else can I get help? And how else can I get support? And it's about us as a team. What we need to do is try and give that young person the tools and the resources to be able to see that other path, and to be able to go, okay, this is really rubbish for you. It's really difficult that you're in this position. It's horrible for your family that they've gone through whatever they may have went through. What can we do to help? And there's we'd be here all day if we went through all the resources and all the services that are available. I think the most important message to them young people is that there absolutely is help and support available for any difficulty you're in. Particularly in Liverpool, we're in a very deprived city, and that's really difficult. But what it means is we've got things like what they call the VRU, which is the Violence Reduction Unit. Now it's called the VRU, which is a bit of an extreme kind of name. Violence reduction sounds quite heavy. It's not about that. It's about young people getting the help, getting the support to stop them potentially offending or to kind of continue offending, and that's the most important thing. So the services like White Pass, Young Addiction, Merseyside Youth Association, there's so many services to get young people support. And I also want to mention young people who are smoking cannabis. I think from, cannabis has always been around. And I think from when I was younger, I think it's a lot, what I see now is it's a lot more prevalent in young people. And there's no judgment there in terms of, oh, well, you shouldn't be smoking cannabis. It's about why someone might be smoking cannabis. So a lot of the young people we see in custody, and it might be difficult for them to put into words how they're feeling or what's going on for them in terms of their emotions and the behaviour. But when we unpick that a little bit, often what we see is anxiety, and often what we see is depression. And what they're doing is smoking cannabis to deal with that anxiety and depression. Now, I'm saying that I'm removed from that situation. I'm not in that young person's position, and I'm outside looking in. But I've been doing this job for a long time, and it's often the pattern that we see. There's something else going on that means that young person's decided to smoke cannabis. And at that point, as I said earlier, it might just seem like, oh, well, I'm just having a bit of weed, I'm just smoking a spliff with my mate. It's not, and it's nothing to be worried about. But as Paul's just described, in terms of drug use, it escalates, and cannabis is a gateway drug. Weed's a gateway drug. So then you might start having a bit of ket at the weekend. You might start having some magic, taking some ecstasy when you go to a party, all that type of stuff. And it escalates and it escalates. And then we see the end product when someone might be in their early 20s or the late 20s where they're using heroin. And we can't, I think it's important that we don't minimise them pathways, and that really does happen. But for young people listening, I suppose the most important thing is there really, really is help. You have to ask, you have to seek it, because the likes of Sarah and Colette and Paul and me and Sadie back in the day when we were more kind of operational practitioners, we really, really care about what we do, and that kind of, when we're interviewing people for jobs, one of the things that, if someone maybe doesn't score that well on an interview question, I can go, okay, but are their values there? Are they passionate about helping people, whether that be young people or whether that be adults? Because that's what you need to be in this job, the passion to help really deprived people, really vulnerable people. And although deprivation is massively important, we also see people who might be from okay backgrounds and might have a steady and a stable home, but they still end up in using drugs. They still end up maybe committing offences, and that can be for a number of reasons. So although we're mentioning deprivation because that's a massive part of what we do and very important, I'm not just relating kind of then that narrative to deprived areas. It can happen to anyone, but the most important thing is that there really, really is help, and there's people who care.
Yeah. Well, what we'll do is we'll make sure that the links for some of those support systems are on the pre-work so students can explore them, and that they are advertised and out there. That would be great. So I'm sure a lot of students are watching this, and those students who are thinking, I want to do a job that can help vulnerable people. I really care, just like those people you described there, Annie. I'll direct this one to you, Colette. What advice would you give to a young person who wants to get into this kind of job role? What pathways and routes are there on offer for them?
Well, I left school at 16, and I wasn't very academic as a person, and I didn't really have any careers advice, and I was told to go and work in hairdressers or go and work in an office, which is great. So I went and worked in an office, but my route was, the office I worked in was in a mental health hospital, and I was a secretary for some mental health social workers. And when I was typing up their reports and their information about their patients, I just thought, I'd love to work with these people. So I actually went to night school and did A levels, and then applied for university, and I couldn't believe it when I got in. So, I mean, I didn't start off being quite a clever girl and leaving school and on this path for university. It just, no one in my family had been to university. So I think you don't need to be that academic. I think you've got to want to study hard. You've got to want to work. You've got to dedicate a lot of time to your studies. But I don't think you have to be super academic to get into this kind of role. I think I was very interested, really passionate, like it's been said before. And that was my motivation to work hard. But it wasn't easy. I didn't find university easy, but I wouldn't let that put people off. And I think at school, even age, I think it's a really difficult time to sort of know, well, I want to do this in my future career. You know, I'm going to be working for the next 40 years and I know exactly what I want to do. I had no idea when I left school what I wanted to do. And it was only when I was a little bit older and thought, well, I'll go to night school, that I sort of come up with a plan. So I think young people are under a lot of pressure to sort of know what their path's going to be, sort of when around the time they're doing the GCSEs. And I think I don't think you have to have that plan in place. You can come across things later on in life and realise that that's your passion, and that's what happened to me. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say.
Yeah, so hard work and having and waiting until you find that avenue that's really, really of interest to you. I know you mentioned university there. Are there other routes into this kind of role, such as like apprenticeships or traineeships?
Yeah. So because we've got different roles in the team, we've got peer mentor roles, we've got volunteer roles, we've got support practitioner roles, registered practitioner roles, which obviously is us who are mental health nurses, learning disability nurses, social workers, and then you can go into kind of the leadership area as well, as Annie and I have done, and we have clinical leads as well as managers and operational managers. So there are a variety of different roles you can do. I think when I started mental health nursing, I never didn't anticipate that this would be an area that I could develop in. I think when you go into a vocational qualification like this or social work, I think it's good to understand that there is such a broad spectrum of opportunity. And I think just kind of picking up on what Colette said, I really would like people to know that they've got opportunity, and to know that despite the challenges we've got and you know, deprivation and the political environment and all of that, you know, there are opportunities. So for myself, I left school at 15 with no GCSEs. I had a number of adverse childhood events, including parental mental illness, parental substance misuse. I went on a youth training scheme. I didn't go straight to university or college or anything, but I came to this later on in life, a bit like what Colette was saying. And I think we really need to send that message to people, and the not only is your lived experience dead valuable, but also that your pathway doesn't have to be school, exams, uni, off you go, you're fine. We can get to it through different avenues.
So there's a way that suits all people.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to mention that you might not get it right. Not as in not get it right, but the first path you might take, you might start it and go, you know what, this isn't the path for me, and I'm going to change pathways. So two of our support practitioners, Hayley and Steph. Hayley's got a psychology degree, and she was really interested in psychology, and she took your more traditional route of leaving, getting her A levels and going to doing psychology, and she got a lot out of that psychology degree. And then she joined our team, and she got interested in kind of liaison and diversion and the criminal justice element. And along before she joined our team, she was working in mental health hospitals. And what pathway she's on now is actually she's decided she wants to be in a vocation. So she's doing the social work apprentice. So she works with our team 4 days a week, and she's doing a social work degree apprentice 1 day a week. So I think it's okay to I think Colette hit the nail on the head, saying, it's a big decision to know what you want to do for the rest of your life. Really, really big decision. And although I took a more traditional route, when people say to me, oh, what made you want to go and do learning disability nursing, I honestly can't think. I don't know. I think I just went and I just done it, and it's worked out well, and it's worked out great, and I'm forever thankful I kind of took that route. I think for me it was probably me personal experiences. So I had a cousin with Down syndrome. My mum worked with lots of different people with learning disabilities, and we were always in and around her workplace because it was a lot more informal back then. So I think it was just me experience, but I can't remember when I was making them decisions being really conscious about them decisions. what I do remember is thinking, I need to have, you know, a bit of a foundation. So whatever pathway I take, I've got kind of my core foundation of whether I go and do nursing, whether I go and be an estate agent, whatever that might be.
Yeah, and I suppose that's why we call it a careers journey, you know, isn't it? Rather than a careers destination, it is a journey that can change and go in all kinds of different directions over time. So just very quickly, one last question, and I'll ask this of Sarah. You know, we want students to know what's the point in school. You know, particularly some students sit there and they can't see the link between future careers and, you know, where they're sat in front of their history teacher or their maths teacher, etc. So thinking back to your time at school, what skills or subjects, you know, skills that you learned from your subject or knowledge that you took away from school, would you say that you still use in your career today?
I think one of the things that I took from school was good organisational skills. You have a time that you have to be somewhere, you know, that you have to have a routine established so that you get there at the right time. And you know that there are things going on throughout the day. You know that there are certain things that you have to arrive with, you know that there are certain people that you're going to be engaging with, sometimes people that you may not wish to be engaging with. And that also is something that you have to learn how to interact with people, and that is something that you do learn through school, because there will be people that you do get on with and people that you don't get on with, and regardless you have to work with them and support them in a non-judgmental way, and that's part of being professional. I think that's something that I've taken from school. I think you do learn. There are things that might be quite difficult in school. I know there were some subjects that I didn't understand and I found it hard to keep concentrating on them. But working through that and working through how that makes you feel, that's something you can transfer. And there are going to be different situations that you come across through your career and through everyday life, that things that feel a little bit uncomfortable take a lot of your concentration. But thinking those things through and coming to a resolution at the end, as well as thinking about, well, reflecting on what you've done and acknowledging that you've actually done something quite good there.
Yeah, so building a resilience in school that you'll take forward into your careers journey. So that finishes off quite nicely. Thank you so much for today's session. I'm sure, you know, students will have found that as interesting as I did. Students, just a quick note, don't forget to evaluate today's session using the Creating Careers roadmap. And if you have any extra questions for the team that weren't covered today, send them into the Careers Hub. So careershub@growthplatform.org, and we'll get them answered for you. So thank you very much for watching today, and hope to catch you on another episode of Creating Careers very soon. Bye.
Thanks.